Hello friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about why are payments bank failing. So what are the reasons for the failure of payments banks in India? So this is what we will discuss today in this lecture. Let us first look into the current affair. So looking at the current affair, the IPPB, that is the Indian Post Payments Bank. So IPPB is a 100% government owned payment bank. So it was launched very recently within last 1 year. So it is reported that the IPPB, the Indian Post Payment Bank, which is completely 100% owned by the government, is struggling to survive. The post payment bank is even struggling to pay the salary bills of its employees and it has got very little business. So this is a report that has been generated. So this is the case with the government owned payment bank. Now coming to certain private payment banks like the other one, the payment banks operated and owned by the private individuals. Just a few months back, Aditya Birla Idea Payments Bank winded up its operations. And the reason cited by the group was that they are going to wind up their operations because the functioning of the bank has become unviable for them. So that is a reason. Now, the Aditya Birla Idea Payments Bank, it started its operations only in the year 2018 in the month of February. Even within the 1 year period, they have experienced an unviability in the business and they decided to wind up. Now, another example is M-Pesa, that is Vodafone Idea Limited, decided to close its M-Pesa vertical following the closure of Aditya Birla Idea Payments Bank. So, this is yet another example. So both in the private sector as well as in the public sector, the payments banks are becoming unviable, that is less profitable, and we need to really analyze what are the reasons for the failure of these payments banks. So we'll be looking at in this lecture what are the reasons for the failure of payment banks. Now let us see what is payment banks in brief. So the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, issued guidelines for the payment banks in the month of November 2014. Now the objective of the Reserve Bank of India was to improve the financial inclusion. So RBI wanted to increase the financial inclusion. What does it mean? Financial inclusion means to bring more citizens or more population into the banking net. So this is meant by financial inclusion. So RBI wanted to bring more people into the financial inclusion or the banking net, into the formal financing or formal banking sector of the economy. So in 2014 November, RBI issued the guidelines for providing licenses to the payments bank. Now, few things to be noted about the payment banks. They have limited area of operation. So they have a limited area of operation. This means that in certain areas they are restricted from operating or conducting the business. Now, for example, what are the limited areas of operation? They can conduct remittance services, they can accept online payments, they can accept deposits but only up to 1 lakh rupees. Now, these are all certain things that are permitted. Now, what is not permitted? Now, what is not permitted? First one is they cannot issue credit cards. That means they can issue debit cards but not credit cards. Second one, they cannot lend money. So they are not able to lend money. Now lending and accepting deposits, these are the two major functions of a bank, and lending is not allowed for the payment banks. Now if we compare the payment banks with that of other similar normal banks, that is the scheduled commercial banks, we can say that the payment banks are only deposit taking institutions or deposit taking companies. Why? This is because the most important role or function of a bank is to accept deposits and also to lend money. But this cannot be done by the payment banks. So they are just deposit taking companies. Now we will actually come to the issue in detail later in this lecture itself. So now just giving you a brief idea about what are possible with the payment banks, what are the restrictions and what are the operations allowed for the payment bank. Now in order to understand it better, let us take an illustration. Paytm. Paytm is a payments bank, and Paytm became very popular during the period of demonetization. Most of you must have used Paytm and conducted transactions through Paytm. So what all you can do in Paytm? You can pay your mobile bill, you can recharge your phone, you can pay your electricity bill, your water bill. So all this can be done. You can even transfer money from one account to another. Now in the Paytm Payments Bank, you have an option to make deposits. So the deposit is restricted up to 1 lakh. Now what all are the things that you cannot do? The Paytm Payments Bank can issue a debit card to you, but they will not issue a credit card to you. That means they will not give credit. Lending is not allowed. Now you can also not take loans from the Paytm Payments Bank, unlike the other commercial banks. If you have an account in other commercial bank, if you want, you can take loans. You can raise loans from the commercial banks, and for the Paytm or the Payments Bank, you cannot raise loans. So this is the major issue. I hope you have an idea about the Payments Bank now. And what was the purpose of Payment Bank? It was to ensure more financial inclusion and also to ensure that there are less number of cash transactions in the economy. Now let us come to the dropping out figures. Let us see how many Payments Bank have dropped out. So Cholamandalam Distribution Services Limited, they were granted approval to launch a Payments Bank in the year 2015. But this Cholamandalam Distribution Services Limited, they dropped out a year later, citing the profitability concerns. So they said they have concerns regarding the profitability of these payments banks. So citing the profitability concerns, they had dropped out of this plan. Second one is Tech Mahindra. Tech Mahindra had also secured a license from RBI, but they did not start operations, citing that they will have only thin margins, that is the profit margins would be very thin or very low profits, and also the return on investments will take a long period of time. That is, the investments that you make, the return, that is you will get profit or the return for your investments, so the time taken for the return of investments is also high, so they also rejected it. So they also did not start their operations. Now a third example is Sun Pharma Company. Sun Pharma promoter Dilip Sanghvi. So he teamed up with IDFC Bank and the Telenor Company, Telenor Financial Services, and they together secured a license. They also did not begin their operations, and the reasons again cited by them was the profitability concerns. They thought that the profitability would be very low. So these are certain companies that have dropped out of this plan of establishing a payments bank, even though they secured a license from the RBI. Now let us see which all are the payment banks that are functioning in India now. First one is Aditya Birla Payments Bank. So they came to operation, they started their operations. Second one is Airtel Payments Bank. Third one is the government owned, 100% government owned India Post Payments Bank. Another one is Fino Payments Bank, Jio Payments Bank, Paytm Payments Bank, and the NSDL. So these are the only ones that are functioning. Now let us see what is the present status of these payments banks. First let us come to Airtel Payments Bank. So Airtel Payments Bank has reported an increase in 10% in its losses, and they have reported a loss of 272 crore rupees during 2017-18 financial year. So in 2016-17 financial year, their losses were 244 crore. So there is an increase by 10%. So loss percentage has increased by 10. So this is the status of the Airtel Payments Bank. Second one is IPPB, that is the India Post Payments Bank, and this was launched only in the month of September 2018. So it's hardly 1 year that they started their operations. And the telecom minister Manoj Sinha, at the time of launching the payments bank, expected that the bank will become profitable in 2 years. But the current status of the bank is even facing difficulty to clear the payment dues of its staff. So the current status says that the profitability targets will not be achieved in 2 years. Now third example is the Fino Payments Bank, and Rishi Gupta, who is the MD and the CEO of the Fino Payments Bank. According to him, the bank will post losses this year. And one reason cited is because the bank is actually expanding its business this year. Therefore, losses are expected, but they are hopeful that in the next year onwards, next financial year onwards, they will start earning profits. Now, next one is Jio Payments Bank. The Jio Payments Bank is a part of the Reliance Group, and it secured a license in the year 2015 August. And it started its operations only in 2018 April. So even though it got a license in 2015, started its operations only in 2018. So they are actually waiting for the returns. So they do not have a clear idea about what are the profitability expectations or what can be the return. So it's just started. It's been just 1 year. Now next one is the Paytm, which is very popular payments bank. So Paytm Bank has turned profitable within its second year of operation, and it has reported a profit of rupees 19 crore for the financial year 2018-19. So Paytm Payments Bank is one payments bank that is running in profit. Now next one is NSDL Payments Bank. NSDL Payments Bank started operations only in 2018 October. So this is the present status of different payments banks that are functioning in the country at present. And now let us see why they consider that this business is unviable. So the viability of a banking business is dependent on the profitability expectations of the bank. So the fundamental objective of banks is to secure profits. So both in the short run and also in the long run. So the objective of any bank is to secure profit. And you must remember that for a bank, its profit margin mainly comes from lending. And we call it as the spread of the bank. Let us see what is this concept of spread. Spread means the difference between the interest rate charged by the banks on loans minus the interest rate given by the banks to the depositors. So the interest on loans minus the interest on depositors. You know that the interest on loans is higher than that of the interest on depositors. So the difference between both of this is called the spread of the bank. And this is the most important factor that will contribute towards the profit of a bank. So lending is the major source of getting revenue or profit for the bank. Now what is the case with payments banks? We have seen in the beginning that the payment banks are not allowed to enter into lending business. They can accept deposit up to 1 lakh, but they cannot lend their money. So definitely this is a challenge. They cannot lend money, and how will they generate profit? Now what are the other sources of income for them? They will earn certain commission on remittances. They will also get some service charges. But these other income earned by the bank, this is only supplementary in nature. That is, the major source of income for any bank is the profit earned by lending. So other incomes are just supplementary. And now coming to the deposit restrictions of the bank, they can accept only deposits up to 1 lakh rupees. And out of this 1 lakh rupee, they have to maintain a CRR, that is the cash reserve ratio. What is meant by cash reserve ratio? It is the percentage of deposits that a bank has to keep with RBI. So a percentage of its total deposits in the form of CRR has to be kept with the RBI, that is the Reserve Bank of India, which is the apex monetary institution. So they have to keep a CRR with RBI, and apart from the CRR with RBI, they are required to invest minimum 75% of their demand deposit balances in either government securities or treasury bills. So 75% of their demand deposits has to be compulsorily deposited with the government securities or with the treasury bills, and they have a maturity period of up to 1 year. And next condition, they have to keep 25% of their fixed deposits with other scheduled commercial banks. So 25% of fixed deposits and 75% of demand deposits, they have to be kept by scheduled commercial banks or government securities, T-bills, etc. Now all these, either the government securities or T-bills or the deposits with scheduled commercial banks, three of these are not viable options. They will not yield much income for the bank. So these are the sources of income for the payments bank, and they are not yielding much income for the bank. Now next thing is with the minimum paid up capital. The minimum paid up capital, the minimum equity capital, paid up equity capital for the payments bank is 100 crore rupees. And also the leverage ratio. The leverage ratio should be less than 3%. So these are the additional requirements or additional conditions. So minimum paid up capital 100 crore means huge investment has to be done. Now again the leverage ratio 3%. That means its outside liabilities should not exceed 33.33% its net worth. So the outside liabilities of the bank should not be more than 33.33% of its total worth of the company or the bank. So these restrictions, one, the restrictions on lending, second one, restrictions on deposits, third one, how they have to keep their deposits, the restrictions that 75% with the government securities, time deposits with the scheduled commercial banks. So these restrictions and also the compulsory provisions like the minimum paid up capital, also the leverage ratio. So all these put together, they will not earn much revenues for the payment banks, and that is the reason the payment banks are failing. So this is a very, very important topic. Actually, I have covered a lot of facts also, like the conditions, like the minimum paid up capital and the maximum deposits accepted. So certain facts are also covered in this lecture, and these facts are very, very important for banking exams, especially for RBI Grade B examination. And also the analysis of the functioning of payment banks. It's again another important topic for your UPSC preparations. And you can find the PDF of this lecture on our website www.studyiq.com. You can follow my Facebook page for more video updates. You can write to me at joycey.studyiq@gmail.com for any of your queries and clarification. Thank you.